Back at Syracuse, we're under the caution. 25 laps have now been completed. Doug Wolfgang leaves Sammy Swindell. Some of the favorites having problems. Let's go to the pits.
We're here with another competitor who only made a very short race. About 3 laps. Danny, what happened?
Right on the start, the motor didn't feel good, and about 5 laps into the race, it started tying up, so no sense blowing it up. I just pulled in.
When did you first realize, were there any problems in qualifying or the A main event?
We qualified well, and on our second lap of qualifying, we blew a head gasket. Put another motor in this morning, and I don't know what wrong with it. Spun a bearing, I think. We've been going good all year and blown a lot of motors, so that's just bar luck, I guess.
That's racing. Back to you, Larry.
Off the number 4 corner of the field, getting all set for a restart. Green flag, and there it is. And once again, Doug Wolfgang puts the pedal to the metal, as you say in the South, and darts out to the lead. Sammy Swindell started outside of him, Mike, and I think he had intentions of closing the door. But
trouble in turn 1, a car into the wall, bounces off it, a lot of jostling back in the pack, but everybody continues, and we stay under green with Wolfgang in the lead. That last car moves very slow off that second turn pin. Jim Champagne is out of the race. He's blown an engine. Add to the list of the retirees, and Wolfgang has now gotten down to 28.9 seconds. Again, breaking the track record. That's the first sub-29-second lap ever turned at Syracuse.
Well, Wolfgang has had a good year. In addition to the 18 wins this year, he is the 3rd biggest winner in the last 3 years in World of Outlaw Racing. He's won 22 times over 3 years. Add 18 this year means he's up to 40, and he's won about 10 or 12 times other than World of Outlaw sanctioned races. So Wolfgang certainly no stranger to the front spot. But I'll tell you, I have not counting out Sammy Swindell. I really don't believe, Mike, that Swindell has given it all he's got. I'll bet he's got some left, and I'm looking forward to the last half of this race, as well as the next 10 laps here.
Swindell, with 28 feature victories coming to Syracuse in World of Outlaws competition, runs second to car number 4. Doug Wolfgang out of South Dakota in the Howell Sprinter, who continues to set new track records here on the 1 mile at Syracuse. Wolfgang takes it into the wide turn number 1. And this track really tightens up as you get to turn number 2. The straightaways at Syracuse are parallel, but the turns are not of one continuous radius. 2 and turn 3, where Wolfgang is entering now, are tighter than 1 and 4. So see how he cocks the car sideways, and then when he gets to turn number 4 on these very square corners, he can let the car drift and bring it up high. Here's Swindell way up on the cushion. He is trying everything in the book to get up and clamber on up to the rear end of Doug Wolfgang.
Actually, Swindell, the man running in the runner-up position, as Wolfgang, as you see, goes to work on the number 27 car of Gary Kraut, now putting a lap on the number 15 car of Dave Kelly, working his way through the slower cars. The leader, Doug Wolfgang. Swindell actually has a little more advantage and experience on our leader, Doug Wolfgang, on a 1 mile racetrack. Swindell has won a couple of times on the mile racetrack in Indianapolis, as well as the mile at Springfield, Illinois.
And he has the added advantage of having Wolfgang break through the traffic for him. Wolfgang has that passing flag, but he must get them to move over and open up a hole for Swindell to follow. Sammy Swindell trying to close in and win his first Syracuse Super National, and pad his World of Outlaws point lead. Here comes Swindell coming up high right on the outside of Doug Wolfgang. They are nose to tail heading for turn number 1 into heavy traffic. Swindell looks on the inside. He's got the move. Swindell gets under Wolfgang, and he's got the lead.
Well, the lap traffic certainly played a factor there. Wolfgang had to get, and Swindell a little bit out of shape coming out of turn number 2, but not enough to allow Wolfgang to move in. Boy, heavy traffic going down the back chute into turn number 3.
Wolfgang gets the inside, working the lap traffic, and gets his lead back. Swindell dirt tracks it sideways off the corner. They draft on machines ahead of them, but Wolfgang gets the move, threads the needle in traffic, and opens up a tenuous lead of some 15 car lengths. Caution is on the speedway again. Cars spinning down at turn number 1.
Mike, I'll tell you, I cannot tell who it is from this distance, but it might be Swindell. Sammy Swindell was in the pack of cars right behind the stalled car on the inside, and it is Swindell. Boy, talk about a rags to riches story. In less than 1 minute, he had the lead going into turn number 3. He exits turn number 1 in almost last position.
The worst part about it is this is lap 39 of the 40-lap segment. If he cannot refire and come around, he may be one lap down when they drop the restart green. And what a heartbreak that would be for Sammy Swindell, who stole the lead from Wolfgang. Gary Kraut slowed going into turn number 1. Swindell had to spin the car to avoid him, and it stalled. These sprint cars do not have self-starters. In fact, they don't even have a transmission. All they have is an in and out box. You're either in gear or out of it. It's the only choice you have. So there's no way for him to refire that machine without a push, and what a heartbreak.
Well, Swindell sits there on the inside of turn number 1. The number 27 car of Gary Kraut was actually the instigation of that particular incident. Swindell in the Nance factory car has just been lapped. You see the cars filing by on the outside of the spin scene on the low side of turn number 1, and officially now Swindell goes down 1 lap, and we're rapidly coming up on the point in this race where the first half is going to be flagged off.
We'll make a correction on the lap count. It was 33, not 39, so we're now at 34 laps, trying to get Sammy Swindell fired before he uses or loses yet another lap to Doug Wolfgang. This must really take the pressure off Wolfgang. He lost the lead. A beautiful move that Swindell put on down in turns 1 and 2 to take the lead from Wolfgang, and skillfully playing the traffic ahead of him, Wolfie got it back in turn 3.
Well, Mike, there are a lot of factors playing on this tussle between the two drivers. Not only victory here at Syracuse, but both of them still have a strong mathematical chance at being the champion for the World of Outlaws this year.
Doug Wolfgang, the leader at 34 laps under caution. Sammy's younger brother, Jeff Swindell, is second. Steve Smith is in third. Keith Kaufman, the 4th place machine. Bobby Weaver sits in 5th. And the 6th place car.
Brad Doty has moved up into that pack, Mike. Doty has definitely not been lapped by the leaders. Remember, Doty started way down in approximately 34th or 35th position, and Doty has put on quite a drive in his bright yellow and orange number 28. He has remained on the same lap. The caution flags have helped him make up a lot of the ground that actually he worked at a deficit from at the start of the race, starting way back in the middle 30s in terms of the lineup. And I'll tell you, Mike, Doty in that yellow and red number 28 could well be a factor in this race yet today.
Well, anytime you start a race like this from towards the back, even with a faster car, you have really got to scratch and scramble and claw your way to the front. Working by those slower cars takes a lot of time when the fella out front can just romp around, and he can put a lap on you in a hurry if you don't charge. And every time that caution comes out, it kind of springs the field back together, and that's an advantage.
The left side row there on your screen have many of the lead cars in it. You see the number 55 car there. That's Jeff Swindell, about 2 cars back. See the number 28 in the upper left-hand part of your screen. That's Brad Doty, about who we've been speaking. Also in that group was the number 66 car of Steve Smith. All of those people on the lead lap with our leader, Doug Wolfgang, in number 4. And now all of the cars on that lead lap are getting closer and closer together with this continuation of caution flag laps.
Doty is 12th in line. Several of the cars ahead of him have been lapped, so that would put him into the top 10 overall. And that is a remarkable performance for Doty, who came back from 32nd starting spot in the field after having to run the B main event just to get into the race here. He started 32nd and has now come up into the top 10.
Well, Doty is probably one of the most improved sprint car drivers of 1981, along with George Ferguson. He won at Williams Grove about a month ago when he beat track champion Lynn Paxton.
Here is Wolfgang hard on the throttle as the restart green is on. 37 laps complete. In 3 laps, they'll red flag the race to add fuel and then come back with the finale. Out of turn 2, the action is all behind him. They stack up 3 deep in the corner, but Wolfgang is alone and out front.
I'm a little surprised at Wolfgang opening up quite a distance between himself and the rest of the field. I'm sure he's been signaled by the crew. He knows exactly how close he is to the completion of the first leg of this race, lap number 40. And maybe that car is running so well that he's not at full throttle. It's just that he's so much quicker than everybody else.
One thought might be, Larry, that it is hard to get caught up in lap traffic and spinning cars if you're way out ahead of them. And Wolfgang is a half a straightaway ahead of the 2nd place car, which is now become Steve Smith. Has moved past Jeff Swindell. Steve Smith is in the 2nd spot. Doty is really coming up on the inside. He has moved himself up into that top 5, perhaps even further. Here's Wolfgang, the leader. We can take a look back in the field. A lap car, Barry Camp, is the next man behind Wolfgang, then Steve Smith, and up into the 3rd spot, Jeff Swindell. Doty Doty has moved his way up into the 7th position unofficially, and we are 1 lap away from dropping the red checker on the first half of this event.
Well, Keith Kaufman, who sat on the pole here a year ago and led a couple of laps early in the race only to have the car fall out from underneath him, continues to be competitive here today in the number 29 race car. Kaufman runs in 4th, and he'll certainly be one of the people to be reckoned with when we flag off the second leg of this event.
Wolfgang is the leader at the end of the first leg. Steve Smith will finish second in a near collision at the finish line involving Kaufman and the challenging car moving up of Doty. So the red flag is out. The rest of the field comes across to take the red flag as we watch Doug Wolfgang coast his way around toward the fuel stop at the break. They have run 40 laps, 40 miles of this 100-kilometer event. After this fuel stop, they will come back and run the final 23 miles under the green, and we'll see if Doug Wolfgang can maintain his supremacy.